Hey everyone, welcome to this week's The People Speak Out. Let me just mute everyone back. And it's good to be in the host seat again. Unfortunately, Sass couldn't make it because of family commitments. And I do get it's the bank holiday, the August bank holiday, but nonetheless, here we are. And it's good to see so many of you on the call. It's actually very overcast and quite cold here in Bakewell. Not a really great holiday weather. Hi, Karine, who's waving. Can see Roger, you've already got your hand up. Hi to Val and everyone else on the call. So if you would like to come on the call and share, please do put the yellow hands up symbol. That's the easiest way for me to manage it. And you can do that in the reactions bar in the bottom of the screen if you're on a laptop. So I will come to you, but I did just want to do an opening little monologue really, because I do feel that the energies are on the move. That's my real sense. And you may have seen I did a video called God Bless America, which I filmed yesterday morning. And I'm not particularly a Trump supporter, but I did feel that it was an interesting unfolding that RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has basically relinquished his campaign as independent candidate for president of the United States and has put his backing behind Donald Trump, which is a bit of a shocker because the Kennedys traditionally were Democrats. But as RFK explained, he basically has said that the Democrats have moved so far from their roots of anti-corporate, anti-establishment, pro-peace, that he could no longer align himself to the Democratic cause. And so to me, that, and his speaking out about the levels of corruption and, you know, big corporate involvement in media and pharma and agriculture and the industrial military complex was quite a revelation, and it had millions of views when I watched it that was on Saturday. So now there has been a bit of a kind of backlash for me posting that, saying, oh, Kennedy is pro-Israel and pro-genocide, and I really don't see that. I don't see that in anything he's put out, not anything that I've seen or watched. And certainly he has always spoken that things that I have seen have been totally pro-peace. So I really personally feel it's important for us to hold the space of non-judgment and to really listen to voices and to really sit and listen without judgment, to really get and to understand what people are truly about and listen to the horse's mouth and not form our opinions based on what we pick up in the media, because we know how twisted that can be. I personally always love to track back to content from the, you know, to listen to the horse's mouth. So listening to Trump and Elon Musk, that was an interesting conversation, for example, or Tucker Carlson and Musk. And of course, the other big news is Pavel Durov, I think his name is, being arrested for alleged terrorism charges in connection with Telegram. So they're obviously massively attempting to clamp down on freedom of speech. And here we are on a digital platform with these Zoom calls, and it's a great way to keep in touch with everyone. But personally, I am so loving gatherings in person. Yesterday, there were just 6 of us at Stand in the Park, and it was a beautiful gathering, just a little tourist field, 6 of us standing in circle with no digital surveillance, just speaking our truth in kind of friendship and freedom and laughter, and just priceless to have that soul connection. And I the more that I kind of experience the digital world versus nature, the more I'm relishing meetings with real people especially out in nature. It's such a comfort for the soul, so healing as well. So we've also got Patrick with his hand up. So I would really encourage everyone to come on and speak your truth, share your opinions. You might want to raise some topics which I haven't even touched on. This is the People Speak Out. So whilst I'm happy to jabber on, I'd much prefer to hear from all of you and for you to come on. And there's James. James has just put his hand up as well. So anyone who would like to speak, please do use the yellow hands up symbol, so that way you come to the top of the screen and I can easily manage the call. So let's come to Rog first. Rog, I know you've got lots of bees in your bonnet. I'm going to switch it to speak of you.
Okay.
And I'm going to mute everyone else back because otherwise we get lots of interference. So if you can keep yourself muted until I come to you, please. Thank you. So Rog.
Yeah. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, how
Thank
you
you for.
doing?
I'm okay, love. Thank you for hosting this, and I hope your house search is going okay. I realise you can't talk about it, but I just hope it's going okay for you. Anyway, what most people think, and I'm sure this applies to almost everybody in this call today, what people think, and it's a great misconception, is that legislation is law. We have been subtly brainwashed by the media, members of parliament, to believe that legislation is law, and it is definitely not. It is only law if people consent to legislation. And what I mean by legislation is acts of parliament. Now, it's not surprising that people are misconceived, because you'll hear, when they've passed some new legislation, you'll hear on the media, maybe the BBC, they will tell you, oh, a new law was passed today. It isn't a new law, it's new legislation. It's nothing to do with law. And the sooner that people understand this, the sooner we'll be able to free ourselves, because this misconception is actually keeping us imprisoned. People believe that it's the law, and it's not the law. Because if you go and people are afraid to go to court, you shouldn't be afraid to go to court, because you can go to court and tell them that you don't agree, you don't consent to their jurisdiction, and you want a trial by jury. Now, they're not just going to simply say, yeah, okay, you can have a trial by jury, you've asked for it. No, it's not easy, but it's your right to have a trial by jury. Then you will be accommodated by the real law and not by legislation. So, I'm now embarked upon a campaign to tell people legislation is not law. And I'd like you, I've put a link, which is to a presentation by Dean of Buxton on a Richard Vobes show. So I've put a link on the chat, and what I'm saying now will be more elucidated upon if you actually watch that video. So please do that. But what I want now, this is my new meme. I want people maybe even to print out notices and show this meme in the window of the car. Because believe me, what I'm saying is true. And you can check it out with any other source that you like. And my meme is legislation is not law. Legislation attacks you, law defends you. So that's my meme. And that's what I want everybody to understand and get that out. But please do go to that link which I've put. And this meme I'm going to post now. I've said it, but better if you actually see it as well. So I'm going to post that on the chat, and I'll let you move on, Rachel, to somebody else now.
So thanks, Rog, for opening up that can of worms. And I have to say, you're looking more and more like God by the week. Sitting there in your chair on your cloud, with essentially God's law. This is what we're truly talking about, aren't we? This is God's law
Well,
we're returning to.
absolutely. And God's law, you don't need a library of books like you see in the solicitor's office.
Exactly.
All you need to know is simply cause no injury, cause no loss, cause no fraud. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the law. Nothing to do with all these books on legislation that you
Yes.
see in a solicitor's office. No,
Yeah.
absolutely not. It's
But
simple.
you are right, Rog, that whilst this is truth, the reality of actually getting a trial by jury is not, they don't make it easy. And I
No.
actually went to Worcester Magistrates Court last week, and Dean came with me, and it was a very interesting experience. Now, I haven't actually gone public on it because it's still a live case, hence why I tend to kind of keep my powder dry on these things until I get to the end. But suffice to say, it was a very interesting experience because the more I asserted, Dean was my Mackenzie friend, the more I asserted law and common law, the angrier they got. It was really interesting. And in the end, they actually asked Dean, which is very rare to ask a Mackenzie friend, because Mackenzie friends normally aren't allowed to speak. In the end, they actually asked Dean, what makes you believe that you have the right to a trial by jury? And he actually stood up and said, we believe it is the law of the people and we are here to reclaim it. I was like, oh my God, it was so powerful. Now, the point about this is that if everyone stood up and questioned, they would not be able to bulldoze through. Now, this particular thing, I challenge everything. I was challenging a speeding gun thing. I actually did a Freedom of Information request and have discovered that this particular police jurisdiction, or police area, should we call it, and you can multiply this up if you imagine how many police areas there are over the UK. So this is one small area, had issued 115,000 notices of intended prosecution from speed cameras in the past year. That's 115,000 people times £100 fine and 3 points on your license. And I'm sure most people go along with it and pay up without questioning. That's £11 million worth of fines. This is big business. This is big business, make no mistake. Now, imagine, even if just 10% of the people refused to consent to the jurisdiction of the court and basically made it difficult. That's 10,000 people having to be listed for hearings at magistrates court. 10,000 people. It would completely grind the system to a halt. And that's why it's so important for us, for we the people, to make it, to not just roll over and pay up and just like for an easy life. It's so important that we challenge and we do not consent and we push back and we stand in our lawful rights. So I'm very passionate about this and I could talk about it for the whole hour. But thank you for opening that can of worms, Rog. Maybe we'll come back to it later in the call. But for now, let's come to Patrick and then I'll come to James and then to Bahia and anyone else who wants to come on the call. It's easier for me if you put the yellow hands up, which is in the reactions bar at the bottom of the screen. So Patrick, let's come to you.
Hi, Rachel. Yeah, I thought it was interesting you brought up this thing of the Telegram founder being arrested. I spent most of the morning finding out about him. He's pretty an amazing guy, and it's an amazing story. I mean, I've heard of Telegram on and off, but I don't know the first thing about it. But basically, he's almost a one-man band, even though he's got like 100 million followers. Mm-hmm. He was born in the Soviet Union, and just a very, very interesting story. But it's about an hour long interview with Tucker Carlson,
Yes.
which I'll put in the chat. I mean, it's really, really worth listening to. I mean, to the point where I started to look into Telegram. I mean, I guess you don't really need it for sort of normal communication, but if you're trying to do something, I don't know, like in Ireland, in this country, if you've got anything to do with being against immigration, for example, you could easily get on a list and get into some big problems. And that's happening in England already. I mean, people who are on Facebook or whatever, they start to have big problems. Anyway, it's just, again, as I said, I'd never heard of the guy before, don't know who he is, but he's very, very inspiring guy. He's still quite young. I think he's probably in his 30s. Anyway, he's been arrested in France, which gives you some idea of the way the EU countries are going in terms of free speech and all that. This guy is very non-political. He doesn't want to take sides about anything with anything, even though, you know, he's not pro-Russian. He has a Russian background, but he lives in Dubai now. So he's nothing to do with Russia per se. But there's this whole, somebody was saying the EU is almost becoming like the Soviet Union. I know in the UK, you're no longer in the EU, but in any way, the whole news, the way the news is slanted, the war in Ukraine is so misrepresented and has been from the beginning. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. And to come back to Robert Kennedy, I did see his speech. I agree with you. It was very inspiring. And the way he tied together, you know, the sort of lawfare, as they call it, the Democrats did on him, not allowing him to get in here, get in there. And then he tied it into the sort of lawfare against Trump. I'm no great Trump fan, but I'm certainly a bigger fan of him than I am these Democrats. So again, I think that's a hopeful sign. Robert Kennedy, I mean, in Ireland, the Kennedys are like, they're like gods. You know, I mean, they just had this great reputation, deservedly or not. But anyway, I hope that it'll affect the American election, because I find myself allergic to this Kamala woman. I mean, I literally can't stand her. When she comes on TV, I have to switch the channel. Now, maybe that's my pre-existing political thing. I don't know, but I find her really disturbing. And I hope that she'll, the way I look at it, get found out and will lose the election. They're all on board with her now. It's all just massive propaganda. But I think on a visceral level, people don't like her. I certainly don't. Anyway, that's about all I have to say.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, so I am a huge Telegram fan, and of course, the whole of the World Economic Forum, mind control, it's all depends on mass formation psychosis, doesn't it? And so they definitely need to silence the voices. They need to, because mass formation psychosis, it only needs one or two people saying, hold on a minute. No, hold on. It only takes a couple of people to break the mass formation psychosis. And so, you know, already, and that was the great thing about RFK, just blowing the lid off the system and how corrupt it is. And I just think that I am hoping that is blowing everything open wide in America. Really, because obviously it's so divided now that Democrats could put up a, I don't know, they could put up anyone, a donkey dressed in blue, and people would vote Democrat. So, you know, Kamala Harris is just a sock puppet. So we have to hope that there's enough of a wave of people questioning now to actually upset the apple cart, and that the Kennedy supporters, I'm not a great fan of Trump, but I do see, in terms of breaking the grip of the big corporations and the Vanguard, BlackRock backed big corporates, World Economic Forum aligned, that's the kind of speech that was needed to wake people up to the extent of the corruption, and that it's the big corporations are in control of politics, and they're in control of the Democrat parties in the same way they're in control of Labour and Con parties, both cheeks of the same arse. So when people wake up to that realization, that's the awakening of consciousness that's truly needed. So that's why I think it was very symbolic. But thank you for coming on, Patrick, and thank you for posting that interview with Carlson and Tucker Carlson and Pavel Durov. I'm going to watch that again, because I only think I watched part of it, but I'm going to watch it again with interest, because yes, he's a very inspiring guy.
Only, yeah, very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Patrick. Right, let's come to James. Hi, James.
Hello, Rachel, and everybody else. I've enjoyed all the chat so far. It's been really informative. I'd got a vague idea of hearing something about Robert Kennedy Jr. saying something, but I hadn't actually seen any more than that. I vaguely saw something somewhere over the weekend, I think. So I shall be following the links in the chat, and the other one to Tucker Carlson, which I used to like when I used to look at some of the interviews or chats or whatever he did on Fox News when he was on there.
Yeah.
I stopped. I deleted my following of Fox News when they got rid of Tucker Carlson. But anyway, yes, it's an interesting stuff, and obviously I totally agree with Roger about legislation. He's helping to educate us all on that, as well as many other people are doing. And as you say, it's not easy to stand up to those who say they're an authority and come around with a uniform on and look all official and start trying to bully you into accepting their way. But yeah, as you say, the more people who do stand up, the quicker the system will grind to a halt or collapse.
Yeah.
And of course, on the spiritual side, we know the new earth, as they call it, is coming. It's probably here already in one way, but it is going to take off more and more over the course of, certainly the next 6 years, but a lot of it is going to be in the next couple of years. I mean, 2024 seems to be going on forever in some strange way. Time seems to go fast, and yet 2024 seems to have been here a long while. It's a bit of a confusing, but what's time? They keep telling us now that time outside of this quadrant of the universe doesn't even exist. So we've got a lot to learn in the eternal future. But I'm quite looking forward to it. But there's been a couple of shares which I will put links in the chat shortly. I'll get round to them because I was nearly a bit late getting here for this chat. There was a one Pam Gregory interview in Native Back, she calls herself, who panels, she calls them blue light beings, but she now says they're actually from they're Syrians from, I don't know if it's the planet Syria, but wherever they're from, they're extraterrestrials or star people. And that's very interesting, and it links in, the reason I mentioned it, mostly because it links in with what the latest one from Stuart Pearce, the chap who speaks very, very well, Stuart Pearce. nice accent. He is a voice coach, but anyway, yes, and he's done another one on the flash of light, as he said, it's coming. And originally on his first one, he said it's coming in this year in the time of Scorpio, which is obviously late October, November, and he's now saying that will be the first of 3 over the course of 6 years. Again by 2030. So we're going to get 3 massive upgrades, possibly uploads, but certainly upgrades of our consciousness that's going to help us along our pathway, and so we're all going to be getting more and more in tune with our own intuition and knowing the difference between lies and truth. I think they're being revealed on this channel here where we're chatting, but JF, what's his name? RF. Kennedy Jr. I'll skip the initials. He's obviously revealing it now, so more and more truth is going to come out. And they're the predictions of loads and loads of the mediums communicating. So I'll go and find those links. I thought I'd share that bit of information that we don't have to get bogged down by the dark agenda. We know it's there, observe it, rise above it as much as you can. Don't agree with it or cooperate with it, obviously. Non-compliance is still the way. But otherwise, look forward to the bright new future, because that helps to raise our own vibration, which helps the collective, which speeds it through and gets rid of the darkness quicker. It's like we're all turning on our own little individual lights and it's brightening up the world, and darkness can't survive. Anyway, that's about it. If you unless you want to ask me anything else.
So yeah, thanks, James. And now it's quite interesting with this whole astrology, because I just literally had coffee with Jude and Howard, who are both astrologers, and we had this intense conversation about Pluto moving into Aquarius, which is happening in November. But it's about to go back into Pluto for its last gasp on the 5th of September until the 15th of November. And the Pluto moving into Aquarius really is this opportunity. This is the way that I would see it or explain it, is like these higher dimensions, they're all already there beyond the veil. So what we're collectively doing is thinning the veil and raising our vibrations so that we connect more easily to these higher dimensional beings, which are all there, and they're all there like willing us on and waiting. And it's that higher dimensional, higher frequency. I wouldn't actually even call it light and dark, because I think that's a slight misnomer. This is high vibrational sacred geometry. And the Wetiko, the dark, lower dimensional parasitic energy, is kind of like chaotic, and it feeds off fear. So the Wetiko needs maximum fear, chaos to survive. But as we create this higher vibrational, perfect sacred geometry, lots of prayer, meditation, sound healing, frequency, light, these are laughter as well. These are all things which essentially the Wetiko just like, it can't survive. So there, I do believe there's going to be a quantum shift in evolution when Pluto fully moves into Aquarius, where the veil's thin so that we can access this higher dimensional frequency consistently and more easily. We're going to experience a completely transformed world of love and light and laughter and joy and peace and prosperity. And that old shit show is just going to naturally fall away. I strongly believe that.
Right.
100% so it's very agree. Powerful times.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, we're in the dying throes of this old era, watching this, as Pam Gregory says, watching the scenery fall. Right, I'm going to come to Bahia now. I hope I pronounced your name right. Bahia?
My name's Devinda, actually. That's come up as my surname.
So it's hi, Devinda.
Hi there, Rachel. I've been meaning to come on the Zoom for a while now, and so I'm so glad to have made it today. The main thing I want to say, and it became urgent since yesterday after they arrested Pavel Durov, because we don't know how long Telegram is going to continue in the situation which has occurred. So more than anything, I wanted to thank you really for everything you've done these last few years. And the most important thing you gave me is I run a wellness class in my business just once a month for the local community. Sometimes there's 3 people, sometimes there's 5 people, sometimes there's 10. And at the beginning, I really stressed about, oh gosh, I'm only reaching 2 people, I'm only reaching 5 people. But what you said about the numbers not being important, just carrying on and just doing what you're doing, really, helped me to then carry on and not give up on what I was doing. And I realized now, after 3 years of doing it, how important that is for the people that do come regularly, and how, it's benefited them, and how that then ripples into their family and their circle and their friends. So yeah, gratitude really for showing me that. Real thank you. And also just to say that with everything that's happening, it is easy to get embroiled in all the events that are happening around the world. But essentially what we don't want to do is get caught up too much. We need to know that, God ultimately has control of everything that's happening. And one of the trickery of the dark side is to make us take sides or become judgmental against one person or another person, which often we don't even know who that person is. But that's part of how the dark side pulls us in. And it's very clever. So even though I'm on Telegram, I can sometimes feel myself getting sucked in a certain way. Although it's the alternative side, it's still getting sucked in. So just from a slightly different perspective, to kind of look at it as if it's all a show, even the arrest of Pavel Durov. That could be part of the show also. We don't really know. The truth is, we don't really know anything. Um, so what keeps me firm now is my faith and now reading the Bible. I wasn't always religious, but I've realized that that's giving me such a strong foundation, and that's what's helping me to see that I can get sucked in, whether it's the alternative side, the mainstream side. In a way, it's all taking our attention. So, and that attention then gets taken away from our spiritual path. So, yeah, that's just my contribution today. And a big, massive thank you for helping me to keep going with my wellness class.
Oh, thanks, Davinda. Well, I'm gonna pass on that gratitude to a lady called Jackie Tweedy, because she was the one who actually taught me that. Because I did some workshops with her back in 2016. So we would do it was like a duo. There were sort of prosperity workshops with color mirrors. And we did this deal that we would run these workshops like once a month on I think it was a Tuesday, once a month. We would run them no matter how many people turned up, whether we got a full house, and even if no one booked, we would still run them and we would do them on ourselves. So we completely dropped all attachment to numbers and we made that pledge. And one of the most powerful ones we ever did was when one guy turned up and we were really embarrassed that he might really like get annoyed, like, where's everyone? And he's like, who else is coming? And like, you're the only one who's booked. And he's like, great, that means I get a one-to-one. And we did this whole workshop. We tailored it exactly to him. And it was the most powerful workshop I've ever been involved in my life. And it taught me the power of the power beyond this ego mind, patriarchal programming, that it's got to be big to be powerful. Small groups have massive power. So unhooking from that program is it's very liberating, because that way, when you go to stand in the park, it doesn't, even if it's just you on your own and you meditate for an hour and you just spend the time visioning and imagining and journaling, daydreaming, it doesn't matter. It's just showing up, and that commitment to showing up every week, no matter what, no attachment, it's very good for the soul, very good self-discipline. Yeah. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lots of love. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's keep going, because we've got Richard, and then Agnieszka, and then we've got Samsung, and I'm trying to remember your name, but I'm sure we'll come to that. I'm going to say Eileen, but you're not Eileen, are you? Okay, sorry, Richard. Let's come to you next.
I'm Lindsay.
Lindsay. Cool. We'll come to you in a sec, Lindsay. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Richard.
Yeah, I've been on here on and off for a long time, and I want to thank you for sending the books to me. You sent me 2 copies. I'm not sure quite why I received 2 copies, but that was nice.
Oh, Liberation. Well, you might have looked on the Lionsgate offer, which was 2 for the price of 1.
That's probably it. Yes, okay. But that's great. I'm sure I'll find a useful place for the other. No, things on the island here have been a bit strange, because although we're a separate entity from the UK.
The Isle of Man, right?
It's the Isle of Man. We have a separate government, but they follow Westminster in like-minded rules. I mean, lockdowns and things like that were copied and transformed earlier. But our legal system here is a complete mess. I can raise about 4 or 5 cases. There was a guy who was involved with medicine on the island, employed by the government, but he didn't like what was going on and started changing things. First thing he got against was injecting boys with vaccines for a women's condition, children, and he got very angry about that, and he got very anti-COVID as well, for very good reason. In fact, his belief now is that vaccines don't exist, which is a rational thing to believe. He was actually jailed for 4 months this year. He's out now.
Melissa's
Driving.
saying HPV vaccine.
Yes, it was HPV
Yes.
he was really against, yes. Anyway, he's now out of prison and he's writing a book, but he's only out of prison on license because if he does anything in the next months until his sentence expires, which I think is the end of the year, he'll be in trouble. So he's keeping a very low profile. There was a guy who was convicted, or they attempted to convict for socializing during the lockdowns on a beach swimming in, and he wasn't together with anybody else. And the police came and sucked him off naked into a police van, and it was many hours when they let him eventually go. He's now trying to sue the police and for everybody who was involved in that because it was totally illegal.
Yes, unlawful.
Totally unlawful, yes, indeed. There's another lass who had her house taken off her in strange circumstances, and she's still in hiding. And she's been in hiding for a long time. And a guy who tried to help her by barricading himself in the house while she wasn't around is also still in hiding in the Isle of Man, which is also very weird. And another woman who I know who was running a horse therapy, equitherapy centre on the island, at the beginning of COVID had a field full of horses, but she wasn't allowed to move them because of COVID restrictions. They therefore got ill, and she was imprisoned for that.
Wow.
And then after that, they then dug into everything they could find on her and claimed that she'd been, they claimed that she'd actually committed 30-odd thousand pounds worth of benefit fraud because she'd claimed benefit. She wasn't actually working and she couldn't work, but she was helping with the horses, but she wasn't earning any great income and they have no proof of that. However, they still convicted her and she got many, many years. I think it's about 8. She's still in prison.
Wow.
The guy Courtney, who was in jail, was also fined. This is the way the level of the justice system works. He was also fined for walking his dog over a bit of beach he wasn't allowed to. Now, what do you think was a reasonable fine for that? He was fined £1,000 plus £500 costs. Now, that just doesn't seem to be equitable. And
it's unlawful. It's unlawful, basically, because it's our lawful right, isn't it? To, you know.
And the other thing about this, the equivalent cases that have done benefit fraud. There's another woman who may or may not be a drug dealer, but that's just a rumor. Was done for £131,000 worth of benefit fraud, and she got a suspended sentence. Whereas this woman, who they didn't like, was in jail for 4 or 5 years. It's the system, the legal system is just broken.
It's out of control, isn't it? And my sense is it's desperately trying to cling on to power, and more people are questioning, more and more people are pushing back, and the waiting lists are getting bigger and longer, and it's, you know,
the prison's full. There's only one prison on the island, and it's mainly full of drug dealers and people who've come in. The guy who is now the chief police officer, I think, hailed from your sort of area. He was, I think, in charge of the whole of the northeast and down to Midlands.
Okay.
And he clamped down it all. And the problem is now they don't have any more jail cells. It's the same problem in the UK. They're getting rid of people out of jail because there's no room for rioters.
And that's why mass non-compliance and standing up is such an effective solution, because if everyone stood up and questioned, the system would collapse. Yeah.
It's in the process of collapsing. Anyway, thank you for everything you're doing, Rachel.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, Richard, and giving us that insight from the Isle of Man. I'm coming to Agnieszka next, who is our water lady, I believe, from Shine, and you're doing the event on Sunday the 15th of December with Eli, and I'm involved in that in Buxton. So welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for this platform and for your diverse contributions. I always get so much out of being here, and I'm not regular. I remember coming more like during the pandemic, and now I tune in when I'm guided, and I never know why I am guided, but I just clicked now why I've come today, because I would like to share something to do with my next event, and actually Helen Miller's gonna be there as well. So I have prepared
Nice.
a little breakdown of our sessions for you, and it's linked to what we've discussed. It's like focusing on our connection with high dimensional beings to help us grow into a sense of freedom and sovereignty. So as Rachel's mentioned, my main theme, like that I've been focusing on for the past 6 years, has been water, but water has taken me into many different directions. So it's forever evolving and expanding. So my background is energy healing and arts, and I've been a few years back, I was guided by Mother Mary to go into the Bosnian pyramids, and I got activated by Bosnian waters there to work with dragon consciousness. And that's all about freedom and sovereignty and courage and really like not taking any nonsense. So we are running with a friend of mine a workshop on dragon rose and amanita.
Nice.
I work with a mushroom, a healing medicinal mushroom, Amanita muscaria, which is another thing that came to me together with the waters back on my land in Poland, like in 2017. And yeah, all these consciousnesses, they are like so connected and working together to support us on this like massive epic journey now to really step into courage. So it's not necessarily purely water, it is not, but it's like a branch of from what I'm doing. So there will be amanita ointment, which is highly medicinal and expanding of the heart, and we'll be tapping into these dragon energies that, as I mentioned, I was activated to work with them back in the pyramids, and it came through the water. So there is an origin of the water, but yeah, that's an offering that I wanted to share with you. So I'll send a little message for you. And I would like to mention that Helen's workshop will be just before ours. So it's happening next day. So first workshop at 2:30 is Helen coming with her healing the money like connection on the heart level, and then half an hour later there will be us.
What date
myself.
is that, Agnieszka?
It's 31st, next Saturday. And
so
it's
part of the Rose Festival in Kent, Eridge Park, Helen Miller at 2:30, and you are on at 4:30.
Yeah, and I've mentioned which spaces we'll be taking on. So yeah, I wanted to share this, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is so random. How is this even linked to what you are like covering? But I really trust my intuition. So when I'm asked to do something, I just come and speak about it. So maybe if you can't come, maybe you can mention it to someone who will resonate with this.
Yeah.
Or either like Helen's workshop or mine. And then, yeah, I don't know if anyone is working with or interested in Amanita specifically, which is the mushroom mycelium consciousness. It is healing on so many profound levels, not just spiritual, but like on a body level. Like mom has been working with it to help her arthritis and mobility and immunity. I just feel I needed to speak about this today, so that's my contribution.
Thanks, Agnieszka. So just to say about Amanita, that's the red and white like toadstool mushroom, isn't it? And my understanding is it's the Amanita that like the Vikings used as their sort of plant medicine when they were going in to invade, because it has a very strong energy, doesn't it?
So depending how you prepare your tinctures and ointments, depending what you want to use it for, you can either extract the compound, which is energy inducer, like your motivation, like peaks, and your creativity as well. So like that's to do with ibotenic acid, and there are ways of preparing it. So Viking used to do it to have courage to go to battle, but you can also convert it to extract a muscimol compound, which is to do with trauma, healing, and deep sleep and deep rest. So there are many different ways. It's like big science behind it, and it's such a beautiful, heart-opening mushroom. That's I think it wants to be known by more and more of us, especially that it has been banned and, well, not, it is legal in this country, but it was classified as like, no, don't go anywhere near amanitas. And like whenever anyone says anything like this, I just get curious. Why are they banning it? You know?
And it's said, isn't it, like the Santa Claus, the colors of the red and white of Santa Claus is like connected to the Amanita mushroom of coming down the chimney.
Yes, it goes back to the shamanic days of shamans of Siberia, when the shaman would go around to forage and dry, prepare, and then comes autumn, late autumn, winter, they would just go around the village, give them out, and people would have flying dreams, and obviously they see flying reindeers and whatnots in the air. So like that is very linked to that tradition. It has been just adjusted so we can have a bit of entertainment by us. Definitely, the church has taken it on. Look at the gowns,
Yes.
the cards they're wearing, and it's a lot of whites and a lot of reds. So this mushroom has been widely used, and we have been discouraged to use it because it opens your heart and your mind, and you really step into your sovereignty. And obviously, this is not encouraged in our society.
Yeah, I will come on to Lindsay in a second, but this is such a fascinating topic because it goes straight back to what Rog started with about the difference between legal and lawful. Now, in truth, no one has the lawful right to tell you or me what plant we can eat. And if we decide, provided we cause no harm, injury, or loss, and that is the key thing. So provided if we want to make a tincture or whatever of amanita and take it, as long as we don't, I don't know, rape and pillage our way through like the Vikings or something, then, you know, as long as we're causing no harm, injury, or loss, we are absolutely free in common law to do whatever we like and eat whatever we like. And this is the truth of the law. Yeah, so it's the legal system is trying to demonize all of these amazing plant medicines, which are so healing, so enlightening, and so transformational, because they want people dumbed down, compliant, and in the false matrix. And of course, all of these medicines blow it completely open. So it's very interesting, this explosion in reclamation of the plants, the great plant teachers. I'm so excited about it.
If I may just add one more, I don't know if there's time, just wanted to say that it is legal, and then even through ointment and skin application, you can have a lot of benefits. So now I will be doing it as ointment, following the request of the organizers, because they're not.
We don't want you raided. We don't want the Kent police raiding your tent.
Right. Oh,
so you had to add that caveat.
Yeah, at Shine we had like beautiful, like just microdose with cacao and water. It was beautiful. Yeah. So it's absolutely fine. Legal mushroom. I highly encourage it. Like, look into it. Maybe don't Google it too much, because obviously there are different misinformation. But
that is another thing that to be aware of, and I will come to you, Lindsay. This is very important. Is that a lot of, because they don't want you to do these things because they're so amazing, they have seeded and they put horror stories in. Oh, I did ayahuasca and it was a nightmare, and I blah 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 and blah blah blah, and we have to be really aware how they have, the misinformation and the kind of psyop has been planted throughout. So if you do Google, it's much better to speak to people who've personally experienced these things and to get your information that way, I would say. Cool.
And the last one, the Viking story is also a bit distorted because it was one of the bishops cardinals who gave the name, like, you go berserk, meaning you go crazy, because the Viking tribe of berserkers used to take the ibotanic tincture from it, but it was distorted because you don't go crazy, you just step into your courage. It doesn't make you crazy unless you totally misuse it. So again, there was like a hint, like indicating you, if you take this, you will go mad, but it is distorted. So like I wanted to speak that there's misinformation, and it's good to do your research from different sources. Thank you for giving me time to talk about it, and yeah, you're most welcome to join us in Kent.
And thanks for clarifying that.
Lots of love. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Agnieszka. So let's come to Lindsay next. It is Lindsay, isn't it? How to get your name right?
I'm sorry, I don't know why my name is not down there. I probably signed on a bit too quick this morning. So next time, I hope I'll put my name will be there. I wasn't going to speak, but once again, you've given me a big rush of synchronicity. And there are several threads, which includes a couple of questions I'd like people's opinion on, not if we've got any time. About a month ago or more, 5 weeks maybe, I also got a speeding, this nice letter from the police saying that I'd gone at 35 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour stretch of road, and realised that it looked like I was going to have to pay £100 fine and the 3 points on the licence, like you mentioned. By the way, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And then a little bit of recent history. I was then going on a 2-week holiday with my granddaughter to Poland and then Prague, which we had a fantastic time over there. I thought, well, I'll deal with this when I come back, because they give you a choice of what to do, including going to magistrate court. I thought I'll leave that. Then the day after we got back on August 6th, I fell violently ill with something my doctor tells me is COVID, which not only the illness, but calling it that came as a shock to me, because I've always dismissed it as probably flu, and probably not a particular virus that was entitled to its own name. But it was like pneumonia, come bronchitis, and I'm just now, first day or two, of feeling I can get up, really. I've been really, really ill. So the last couple of weeks, I've looked at this police letter and I just can't. I just don't have the mental energy to deal with it. I'm 78 next birthday. I've got a completely clean license since 1980. And at my age, I think it is so cruel and immoral, you know, to put this on people. 35 miles in a 30-mile, I have no idea. I think I just increased speed to get through a green light, something like that. But it just, you know, I just thought, oh, they're trying to make money here. I'll just pay it. And I can't bring myself to do that. I've not replied, and I'm hoping that they will just say, right, you could go to court on such and such a day eventually. But I was fascinated to know that you've been involved in something similar, and I don't know if there's any way to get any more information from you about how to deal with all this.
Okay, Lindsay, so let me ask you a question. So when you received that notice of intended prosecution, they would have sent you a form asking you to fill out a form and send it back declaring who the driver was. Did you get that form?
That's what I have done. I have acknowledged it's me.
Did you fill in the form, is my question.
filled in a form saying it was me that was driving.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Because you have then just declared that you were the driver. So now this was the difference in mine, because I basically exercised my right to remain silent, because we are innocent until proven guilty. So we have the right to remain silent, and we have the right not to incriminate ourselves or others. So right there, you have. So this is the thing. Now, this single justice procedure, which is how they deal with all of these misdemeanors which aren't prisonable in offences, that single justice procedure means one magistrate can rubber stamp it in your absence and boom, you get your fine. That's what they depend on. They depend on people's acquiescence to the single justice procedure, which is how they manage to process 115,000 of these a year, because they just rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. Blah, 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 blah. So just by making it difficult for them, by not sending in the form, by exercising your right to remain silent, by I required a trial by jury. I'm like, you can't have one. It doesn't say in the legislation. And I'm like, I believe I have the right to a trial by jury, and making it difficult. This is the main thing. So I would, if I were you, write a letter explaining your situation, that you do not consent to the single justice procedure. You require you could ask for a trial by jury. Now, the very key, the single justice procedure is a trick which they have created to streamline the court process so that they don't have to have a proper trial. In other words, so that they can process 115,000 of these things just by rubber stamping. Because if they had to have a hearing for every single one, they wouldn't be able to cope. And that's how they've managed. Could you imagine 115,000 a year? Sorry, I will come to you, Patrick. If you imagine 115,000 of these a year are being issued by one police force, multiply that up around the country. So you're talking about millions of these frickin' things. Millions of people are regularly and consistently speeding all across the country, and the Freedom of Information Request Act information I obtained showed there was absolutely no correlation between the speeding fines and the actual speed-related incidents. No correlation whatsoever. So there is no, and the police could not provide any evidence that there was any correlation between speeding tickets, speeding fines, and road safety. And they said, look it up on the internet. So this is the point. This is a complete con. And millions of people are consistently speeding the whole time, every single day, day in, day out in this country. And it is a huge money making. It's making millions and millions and millions of pounds a year. And it is completely unlawful. And that is why it's important for us to stand. So I would not be accepting the single justice procedure. I would be requiring a hearing and to question the system. And that's what I'm doing with it. But anyway, we won't get too hung up. I'm going to come to Patrick for the last words.
Yes, I don't know. We don't have much time. No, I just wanted to add.
Keep going. Don't worry. We'll keep going.
Okay, I was living in America in 2016 when that election was being, that summer. Anyway, I knew quite a few of these anti-vaccine people, and they had a lot of hope in Trump that he would do something about vaccines. And one reason was his son. This is one of his younger sons now, the young tall kid. He apparently is kind of on the autistic spectrum, and Trump became aware of this and even became aware of the vaccine arguments and even said things, on the campaign trail, there's too many vaccines. Anyway, there was a lot of hope that he would give Robert Kennedy a job in his administration after he got elected, if he got elected. And of course he did. And apparently he met with Robert Kennedy, but he also met with Bill Gates around the same time because he was kind of mulling what to do about all this. And apparently Fauci convinced him it would be a big mistake to go with the Kennedy road, you might say. It would be better to go with the Gates thing. And you could see how that led to the whole COVID thing then, because there was this pro-vaccine agenda. you might say COVID was just an excuse to bring in vaccines. Fauci was in charge. Anyway, I'm just letting you know that there is a background to this Kennedy-Trump thing. It was already mooted in 2016. But again, this comes to this thing of Trump. How reliable is he? How much principle does he have? And maybe the answer is not so much. I mean, he gets seduced by Bill Gates and all of the vaccines and how many vaccines they'll sell, and Gavi and the World Health Organization. Trump basically threw in the towel to that lot, even though I think his instincts were on the other side. So anyway, just a little bit of background to this Kennedy thing, you know. So.
Yes, because RFK was an outspoken voice anti the whole big pharma vaccine, wasn't he? Now, if you remember what the trick that they played, it was a clever trick, is that in the UK, they positioned Boris Johnson as saying, don't worry, we can all get herd immunity. Right. It's all right. And it was the big corporations that actually closed down the country, not the government. It was a clever trick because McDonald's suddenly said, we're going to close all, we don't care what the government says, we're closing all of our restaurants to keep our staff safe. And it was the corporations that closed all the venues. And they made it seem like the government was caught on the back foot because then Trump, if you remember, he then said publicly, I don't want to make the same mistake that they made in the UK, you know, thinking that everyone's going to get herd immunity. So it was a trick. It was a clever reverse psychology psyop that was played by bumbling Boris.
Right.
Saying, no, we're not going to close anything down. We're going to keep it all open. It was the corporations that closed it all down. And then Trump was kind of caught on a kind of back foot. And my sense is now, 4 years down the line from that and 8 years on from his last presidency, he's a lot more shrewd, he's a lot more aware, and my sense is it's moved to a different level, it's moved to a higher octave. There's a different sense of the Trump campaign. It's not so much a Trump ego trip. This is something that is a wave of awakening, and there's a lot of God in it. There's a lot of talk about prayer and God and this and reclaiming like God's law, God's rights for the people, and reclaiming the principles of the American Constitution. It's gone to a different level of moral high ground. That's my sense of the difference between then and now. So I think it's very fascinating to watch what's unfolding, because of course we're all different levels of awakening, and you know, like not everyone was clear in 2020, but in hindsight is a wonderful thing that everyone's woken up to the level of the corruption, and they won't get away with it again, and particularly not with Trump as president. That's my heartfelt.
Well, I admire your optimism, Rachel. Personally, I'm kind of more once bitten, twice shy with Trump. It's like, can you really trust the guy? Do you know what I mean? It's like his principles seem very weak.
Well, these things are all stepping stones. So as this whole thing is being blown open, as the whole Pluto in Capricorn is destroying, it's like sometimes someone needs to come in like a Starmer for everyone to wake up. So you know, these things, like the universe works, it works in spirals and circles. So it to take us from point A to point B, it takes us via point C. Right. It may not be clear, but it's like sometimes you need to have the Klaus Schwabs and the Bill Gates to wake everyone up.
Right.
So it's like, you know, we have to trust there's a divine plan and keep vision. This is the key thing. Keep praying, keep visioning, co-creating the world we do want, and keep bringing in the light, keep visioning, keep praying, keep co-creating. And that's what's going to take us ultimately to co-create the new world. That's
right. And Robert Kennedy, he's written a book which I read a few years ago. I mean, he was totally knowledgeable about the vaccines and what they're doing and the gain of function and the viruses, and he knows that stuff inside out.
Yes.
Whether he can
I think RFK is a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. And yes, and this is the thing, the whole of the electoral systems, the whole of the democratic election systems may completely be swept away. Who knows? Like we've seen, democracy in the UK is completely broken. Labour got a landslide on just 16% of the people. Most people aren't interested in voting anymore. They've given up on politics and politicians. It could well be that we don't even have the old systems anymore, that we completely recreate the way we organize ourselves. I believe everything, when Pluto moves into Aquarius, everything is up for like a quantum shift in evolution. So
okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks Patrick. And yes, I was hoping you would get the last word, but as usual, I always take the last words. So so we're going to end it there. Thank you all for staying on. Let's have a wave just so we get a nice screenshot to use as the thumbnail. Thank you for staying on. Lots of love. I think we had about 30 people on today. A nice turnout for a August Bank Holiday Monday. Thank you for supporting these calls. I'm happy to continue them even no matter how many people turn up. But it's so great to see so many of you and to have so many of you sharing. Yeah, lots of love. Thanks, Karine, for your heart. Lots of love. And in 2 weeks' time, I think it's going to be Helen back unless there's a rejuggle with Sass. But we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Bye.
Bye for now.